Hi everybody, I'm Leah of Seed and Drill, and today's video is how to buy your first table saw and how to get started using it. So the primary considerations you should have before selecting a table saw are two things. Your budget, that's number one, right? And number two is, what are your needs? Now, only you know what your needs and your budget are, but I can take you through table saws and show you what your options are. So let's do that. Now, the Benchtop portable table saw can be a great choice if you have limited space and you have limited funds. These saws tend to go for between $100 and $500. However, you can't really rip wood on these table saws, and you can't really rip heavy stock. Now, the contractor saw is a step up from the portable table saw. You're going to have more space. It can cut thicker stock, but it costs a little bit more, between $500 and $1,700. So you may want to consider this saw for yourself. Now, our next saw is the cabinet style table saw, and I got to tell you, it carries a little bit more of a hefty price, but it's well worth it because there is little that this saw cannot cut. But you're gonna have to have the space in your shop for it, because once you move it in, you can't move it around. Now, number 4 is a hybrid saw, and I got to tell you, they're gaining popularity. In fact, I own a hybrid, and this is my saw here. It's the Laguna Fusion. I got to tell you, I love it because it's like a step up from a contractor saw, but just a little bit of a step down from a cabinet style saw. It's got some real weight to it, and it's got some features that, well, you would find on a cabinet style saw. So now I'll tell you that I paid a little over $1,100 for my table saw, and I felt like I got a pretty good deal because I was looking for certain things with my hybrid, and that was, I was looking for a cast iron top, because when you have a cast iron top, it really adds stability to the table. There's less vibration. The other thing that really got my attention was the trunnions were attached to the frame and not to the tabletop. That mattered to me as well. But you know, when it comes down to selecting your table saw, you have to figure out what's important to you. The first cut I'm going to make is called a rip cut, and I got to tell you that table saws are ideal pieces of equipment for making rip cuts, and rip cuts go with the grain. Okay, now this is a general rule that I always follow because I want to keep all 5 fingers on both hands, right? And that is this: don't allow your hand to get within 4 inches of the blade. And I use a push stick when I'm making a very close rip. Before I plug in the saw and turn it on, 2 things I want to mention. Make certain that you have your blade adjusted just above the stock that you're cutting, okay? Now, something that's important is speed, that you're feeding the wood through the blade, okay? You don't want to go too slow, because if you go slow, you're going to get burn marks on the side. If you go too fast, you're going to get tears in the wood. So you want a nice, smooth, steady, consistent flow. Now, here's a temptation that folks may want to do, and it is the worst thing that you can do, and that is to use your fence in combination with your miter gauge. That's what this is called, a miter gauge. And sometimes folks think, oh, it would be really safe and really accurate if I were to use both the fence and the miter gauge and I cut my wood. But here's the thing. It's really dangerous. So what happens is the wood gets pinched. As you feed it through, it gets pinched between the fence and the blade, and the wood starts to turn. And once it starts to turn, there is a danger of a kickback. So never use your miter gauge in combination with your fence. Now we're going to make a cross cut, and we're going to use our miter gauge to do it. Now, what we want to do is definitely, let's move this fence out of the way, all right? Now, in cutting with a miter gauge, the wood rests up against the miter gauge's fence. That's what this is here, and we're just going to push it through, okay? And that's all there really is to it. Now, again, I want to tell you that when you make a cross cut, just like you make a rip cut, make certain that you're not in line with the blade. Stand to one side of the blade or to the other side of the blade, because this little piece here that's left on the table, sometimes it gets kicked back as well. In addition to a riving knife, your saw usually comes with a guard and a splitter as well. And this does the same thing as a riving knife, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the riving knife and I'm going to install the splitter and guard. Now, when making adjustments around your blade, just make certain that the saw is not plugged in, okay? I've got my guard and my splitter on. I just have to put the plate back in. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a larger piece of stock, and I'm going to push it through with my hand. I'm going to have my thumb about in the center of the wood, and I'm just going to push through, okay? Ready? Here we go. So that's it, folks. That's all there is to it. Hopefully, I took out some of the mystery about how to select a table saw and how to use one safely. And you see, it's not that intimidating, is it? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link in the description below so you can check out this table saw for yourself. And if you're new to CJ Drill, can I encourage you to subscribe? This is Leah saying you can do this. See you next time.